The smell of garlic bread and roasted beef filled the house that evening. Warm and unfamiliar. Laura, my adoptive mom, never cooked like this. Not for Thanksgiving, not for Christmas, not ever. She was always buried in her accounting ledgers, her glasses slipping down her nose, grabbing a soda from the fridge if she even bothered with the kitchen. But tonight, she'd gone all out, mashed potatoes, green beans, the works. I should have known something was wrong. I'd just turned 20, fresh off my community college graduation with a degree in communications. My old oversized t-shirt hung loose, my hair tossed into a messy bun. As I wandered into the dining room, half expecting a rare family moment. Maybe they were proud of me. Maybe this was their way of showing it. I was Ava Mitchell, always hoping for a scrap of warmth from the family I'd grown up with. Even if it rarely came. Stephen, my adoptive dad, called me into the living room instead. His voice was sharp, like the time I spilled coffee on his laptop in 10th grade. I stepped in, and the air felt heavy, like the room was holding its breath. Stephen sat on the sofa, his eyes fixed on the patterned rug. Laura stood beside him, her hands clasped so tightly her knuckles were white. She wouldn't look at me. No smiles, no birthday wishes, just silence, thick and suffocating. Sit down, Stephen said, his voice low, colder than I'd ever heard. I sank into the armchair, my fingers digging into the hem of my shirt. My heart started to race, though I didn't know why. Laura spoke first, her words stiff, like she'd rehearsed them 100 times. You're adopted, Ava. We brought you home when you were 2. Your birth mother couldn't take care of you. I froze. The words hit like a punch, stealing my breath. Adopted? My mind spun, trying to grab onto something solid. Stephen's voice cut through. We did what we could for you. But you're an adult now. It's time to go your own way. He leaned forward, sliding a backpack across the floor. It thudded against my feet, heavier than it looked. Some cash, clothes, and a rental agreement for an apartment. You leave tonight. My ears rang. Leave? Tonight? On my birthday? I stared at the backpack, then at them. Laura's eyes flicked to the wall, avoiding mine. Stephen's face was stone. No hugs, no apologies, just this cold, calculated dismissal. I wanted to scream, to demand why, but my throat felt sealed shut. All those years in this house, Laura singing me to sleep when I was little, Stephen teaching me to ride a bike, flashed through my mind. Were they all a lie? I stood slowly, my legs shaky, and picked up the backpack. My fingers clenched the strap so hard my nails bit into my palms. Thank you, I said, my voice soft but steady. A mask I'd perfected in a home where emotions were rarely welcome. I turned and walked out, feeling their eyes on my back but hearing nothing, no plea to stay. No goodbye. They didn't know I'd seen something 2 months earlier. Late one night, while borrowing Stephen's laptop for a school project, an email notification popped up. It was from someone I didn't recognize, mentioning Claire Donovan and a classified project. I'd closed it quickly, heart pounding, but the name stuck with me. Claire Donovan. Who was she? Why did the email feel like a secret they didn't want me to know? I stepped into the cool California night, the backpack heavy on my shoulder, and felt the weight of their betrayal settle into my bones. The house behind me, with its neat lawn and glowing windows, looked like a stranger's. I wasn't just leaving a home. I was leaving a life I'd never truly understood. And deep down, I knew that email, that name, Claire Donovan, was the key to unraveling it all. The apartment they'd rented for me was a dump. It sat on the edge of a gritty lot in suburban California, next to a row of rusty trailers and a parking yard where trucks groaned all night. The air smelled like oil and stale dust, and the walls were so thin I could hear every honk and shout from the street. I dropped the backpack on the sagging bed, its springs creaking under the weight, and sat there in the dark, staring at the peeling wallpaper. I was alone, truly alone, for the first time in my life. At 20, I thought I'd be celebrating my graduation, maybe planning a future. Instead, I was here, cast out like trash, with Laura and Stephen's cold words echoing in my head. You're adopted. Leave. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind kept replaying the moment in the living room. Laura's eyes dodging mine, Stephen's voice like a judge passing sentence. And that email I'd seen 2 months ago, Claire Donovan. Classified project. It gnawed at me, a thread I couldn't let go. I unzipped the backpack, desperate for anything to anchor me, and started pulling out the contents, a few t-shirts, some cash in an envelope, a cheap phone charger. Then my fingers brushed something hard in the side pocket, a USB drive. Small and black, tucked into a seam like it wasn't meant to be found. I turned it over, my heart skipping a beat. A faded label read, C. Donovan _2001. Claire Donovan, the name from the email. My hands trembled as I held the drive, a mix of fear and hope churning in my chest. Was this a clue to who I was? To why they'd thrown me out? I didn't have a laptop, but I knew where to go. The next morning, I took a bus to the public library, the only place I could think of that felt safe. The library was quiet, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the tap of keyboards. I claimed a computer in the corner, plugged in the USB, and clicked on the single file, C. Donovan _2001. It was encrypted, a password prompt glaring at me. I tried my birthday, my name, random words, nothing worked. Frustration burned in my throat. But I wasn't giving up. I opened a browser and typed, Claire Donovan, into the search bar. My fingers hesitating before hitting enter. The results flooded in, and my breath caught. Claire Donovan was a journalist, an investigative reporter who'd made waves in the early 2000s. She'd published exposés on a medical giant called MedPulse, accusing them of selling patient data and running illegal drug trials on orphaned kids with no one to protect them. The articles were old, archived on obscure news sites, but they painted a vivid picture. Claire was fearless, digging into MedPulse's dark corners until she hit a wall. In 2005, she was committed to a psychiatric facility called Cedar Hollow, labeled delusional and paranoid. After that, her name vanished. No updates, no interviews, nothing. I leaned back, my heart pounding. A journalist, silenced for telling the truth. Could she be my birth mother? The thought felt too big, too fragile, like it might break if I held it too tightly. I pictured her, a woman I'd never met, maybe with my eyes or my stubborn streak, locked away somewhere. Her voice stolen, tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back. I wasn't ready to cry. Not yet. I needed answers. I kept digging, clicking through old forums and digital archives. One article mentioned Hope Bridge Foundation, a charity that funded MedPulse's research. My stomach twisted when I saw a name in the donor list, Stephen Bennett. Listed as a board member since 2003. My adoptive dad, the man who'd raised me, who'd taught me to tie my shoes, was tied to the same company Claire had exposed. Why would he adopt me? The daughter of a whistleblower? The pieces didn't fit, but they formed a shadow, a lie I'd been living in for 18 years. I sat there, the library growing darker as evening crept in, the screen's glow burning my eyes. I thought about Laura, her gentle hands braiding my hair when I was 8, her soft voice reading me bedtime stories. Had she known about this? Was she part of it too? The USB drive sat beside the keyboard, its locked secrets taunting me. I didn't know how to crack it, but I knew I couldn't stop now. Claire Donovan was out there, maybe still alive, maybe still fighting, and I was her daughter. Whether Stephen and Laura wanted me to know it or not. I closed the browser, my hands shaking, and slipped the USB into my pocket. The library was closing, but my search was just beginning. I stepped into the chilly night, the weight of that tiny drive heavier than the backpack I'd carried out of their house. I didn't know where this path would lead, but I felt it in my bones. Claire's truth was my truth. And no one, not Stephen, not Laura, not MedPulse, could keep it buried forever. The library became my refuge, a quiet corner where I could chase the ghost of Claire Donovan without anyone looking over my shoulder. But that USB drive, with its locked file labeled C. Donovan _2001, was a dead end. I didn't know how to crack it, and every failed password attempt felt like a door slamming in my face. I was 20, alone in a rundown apartment, with nothing but a name and a hunch that my adoptive parents, Stephen and Laura, were hiding something bigger than my adoption. I needed help, someone who could break through the encryption and tell me what MedPulse, and my family, didn't want me to know. Late one night, scrolling through an investigative journalism forum on a library computer, I stumbled across a user named Shadowbite. Their posts were sharp, technical, hinting at experience with cracking corporate secrets. I hesitated, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Could I trust a stranger? But I was out of options. I sent a private message, keeping it vague. Found an encrypted file tied to MedPulse. Need help unlocking it. Can you crack it? To my surprise, Shadowbite replied within hours. Send me a sample. If it's legit, I'm in. Name's Ethan. My heart raced. Ethan Parker, a hacker, was my first real lead. I met Ethan at a 24-hour diner off the highway. A place with flickering neon signs and coffee that tasted like regret. He was younger than I'd expected. Maybe 25, with messy dark hair and a hoodie that looked like it hadn't been washed in weeks. His eyes were sharp, scanning the room before settling on me. I slid the USB across the table, my hands clammy. This is all I have, I said, my voice low. It's about someone named Claire Donovan and MedPulse. I think she's my birth mother. Ethan plugged the drive into his beat-up laptop, his fingers flying across the keys. MedPulse, huh? Shady outfit. I've seen their name in data leaks before. After a few minutes, he leaned back, whistling softly. This file's got military-grade encryption. Whoever locked it didn't want it opened. But I can crack it. Give me a day. I nodded, relief mixing with dread. What was on that drive that someone wanted buried? The next evening, Ethan emailed me a decrypted file, a folder of MedPulse documents, internal memos, and a list labeled Silenced Assets. Claire Donovan's name was at the top, marked Cedar Hollow, 2005, ongoing observation. My stomach churned. Ongoing? Was she still there? Another document detailed MedPulse's drug trials on orphan children, with cold phrases like minimal oversight and disposable subjects. I felt sick, picturing kids like me, alone, used as lab rats. Ethan's message was blunt. This is heavy. Ava, be careful. MedPulse plays dirty. I searched for Cedar Hollow, hoping to find Claire. The facility had shut down years ago, but an old medical forum mentioned Pineview Center, a private clinic in the Northern California hills, taking in special transfers from Cedar Hollow. My hands shook as I dialed Pineview's number, pretending to be a distant cousin. The receptionist was curt but confirmed Claire Donovan was a patient. Restricted visits only, she said. You'll need to sign a no-recording agreement. I agreed, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and longing. I was going to meet my mother. The bus to Pineview was a long, winding ride through foggy hills. The center loomed at the end of a gravel road, a gray concrete building with barred windows and a faint smell of antiseptic and old wood. I signed the agreement, my hand trembling, and a nurse led me to a second-floor room. My breath caught as I pushed open the door. Claire sat by a small window, her silver hair catching the dim light, her frame thin but her eyes fierce, like they could cut through steel. She turned, and for a moment, we just stared, the air heavy with unspoken questions. Claire? I whispered, my voice breaking. I'm Ava. I think I'm your daughter. Her eyes widened, filling with tears that didn't fall. She stood, slow and unsteady, and reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold but strong, gripping mine like she was afraid I'd vanish. I never forgot you, she said, her voice soft but clear, each word carrying years of pain. They took you from me. Ava, MedPulse, they destroyed everything. I sat across from her, my heart aching as she spoke. Claire had been a journalist, uncovering MedPulse's illegal trials on kids with no families. She'd gathered proof, documents, recordings, and sent them to regulators. A week later, she was suspended, labeled unstable. A month after that, they locked her in Cedar Hollow, then moved her to Pineview, claiming she was paranoid. They said I was crazy, she said, her voice trembling with anger. But I knew too much. And you were my proof. I swallowed hard, tears burning my eyes. Proof? I asked. She nodded, her grip tightening. You were born during my investigation. MedPulse knew if they took you, I'd stay quiet to protect you. Stephen coordinated their funding through Hope Bridge Foundation. He made sure you were kept close, under their control. My mind reeled. Stephen, the man who'd bandaged my scraped knees, was part of this? Then Claire's voice dropped. Urgent. Laura worked for MedPulse too. She was their secretary before she married Stephen. Don't trust her. Ava, they're still watching. Laura, the woman who'd braided my hair, who'd tucked me in at night. My chest tightened, a wave of betrayal washing over me. I wanted to scream, to run, but Claire's hand anchored me. I've waited 18 years to see you, she said, her eyes softening. You're stronger than they know. I cried then, the tears spilling over, not just for her but for the life we'd both lost. I pulled out the USB, showing her the decrypted files. I found this, I said. I'm going to make them pay. Claire nodded, a faint smile breaking through her pain. Be careful, Ava, they don't let go easily. A nurse knocked, signaling my time was up. I hugged Claire, her thin frame trembling against mine, and whispered, I'll come back for you. As I left, her warning echoed in my head, don't trust Laura. I stepped into the foggy hills, the weight of her words heavier than ever. Claire wasn't just my mother, she was a fighter. And now I had to be one too. Claire's words haunted me as I rode the bus back from Pineview Center. Her frail hand still vivid in my memory. Don't trust Laura, she'd said, her voice sharp with warning. Laura, the woman who'd bandaged my cuts, who'd given me a silver charm bracelet for my 10th birthday, who'd smiled at my graduation just weeks ago. How could she be? Don't trust her. The words twisted in my gut, tangling with the MedPulse files Ethan had unlocked from the USB. MedPulse had used kids like me as test subjects. And Stephen, my adoptive dad, was tied to their funding. Now Laura, too? I felt like I was drowning in secrets. But I wasn't stopping. Claire deserved the truth, and so did I. I met Ethan at the same diner, its neon sign buzzing in the dark. He looked tired, his hoodie rumpled, but his eyes lit up when I told him about Claire. She's alive, Ethan. She's been locked away for exposing MedPulse. We need more proof to bring them down. He nodded, tapping his laptop. I'm digging into the files. But we need someone who knows MedPulse's inner workings. Got any leads? I remembered a name from the forum where I'd found Ethan, Diane Foster. A former MedPulse employee who'd posted cryptic warnings about their data projects years ago. I tracked her down through an old email address, sending a message about Claire in the USB. To my shock, she replied within hours, I know Claire's case. Meet me at the old community center. 8 p.m. Bring the drive. My heart raced. Another ally, another chance. The community center was a faded building with cracked windows and a flickering streetlight. Diane was waiting in a back room. A woman in her 50s with short gray hair and a no-nonsense stare. She held out her hand for the USB. Her voice steady. I was a data analyst for MedPulse until I saw too much. Claire was right. They were selling patient records and testing drugs on orphans. I kept evidence, but I couldn't go public. They'd ruin me. She handed me a hard drive, her eyes intense. This has emails, recordings, everything I saved before I left. Claire's voice is on there. Back at Ethan's cramped apartment, we plugged in the hard drive. The files were a goldmine, internal memos about untraceable subjects for drug trials, payment logs to Hope Bridge Foundation, and a recording of Claire, her voice shaking but fierce, detailing MedPulse's experiments to a board member who dismissed her. I clutched the table, my knuckles white. They used kids. Ethan, kids like me. I could have been one of them. My voice broke, tears welling up. I saw myself at 2. Alone, no one to protect me. Claire had fought for us, and they'd buried her for it. Ethan's face hardened. There's more. Look at this. He opened an email chain from 2004. Marked, confidential. Subject relocation. My breath caught as I read. It detailed Claire's transfer to Cedar Hollow. Signed by a MedPulse executive. But another name stood out, Laura Bennett. Listed as project coordinator. Laura had overseen Claire's imprisonment. My adoptive mom, the one who'd baked me cookies, who'd cheered at my school plays, had helped lock away my birth mother. I felt like I'd been punched. The air sucked out of me. No, I whispered, shaking my head, not her. But the worst was yet to come. Ethan clicked another file, a scanned document from MedPulse's legal team. It was a family registry, linking Claire Donovan to Laura Bennett. Sisters. Laura was Claire's older sister. My vision blurred, tears spilling down my cheeks. Laura hadn't just betrayed me, she'd betrayed her own flesh and blood. The document outlined a plan. Laura would take custody of me, Claire's daughter, to neutralize her. They adopted me to keep me close. A living bargaining chip to silence Claire. Every hug, every smile from Laura flashed through my mind, the bracelet she'd given me. The bedtime stories, the proud look at my graduation. All lies. She'd sold her sister to MedPulse, locked her away, and raised me like a pawn in their game. I sank to the floor, sobbing, my hands covering my face. She was my family, I choked out. Laura was Claire's sister, and she did this. She ruined us. Ethan knelt beside me, his hand on my shoulder. Ava, I'm so sorry, but you've got the truth now. We can expose them, Laura. Stephen, MedPulse, all of them. I wiped my eyes, my chest heaving. He was right. The pain was a knife in my heart. But I wasn't weak. Claire had fought for me, and I'd fight for her. I stood, my hands shaking but my resolve solid. We're going public, I said, my voice steady despite the tears. Every file, every email, every word Claire said, they don't get to hide anymore. Ethan nodded, his fingers already typing. I thought of Claire's fierce eyes, her hand gripping mine at Pineview. Laura had taken everything from her, her freedom, her daughter, her life, but she hadn't taken her strength. And she wouldn't take mine. Laura's betrayal cut deeper than any wound I'd ever known. She wasn't just my adoptive mom, she was Claire's sister. The one who'd locked her own blood away and raised me as a shield for MedPulse's secrets. Every memory of her, her warm hugs, her laughter at my terrible middle school plays, felt like poison now. But I couldn't let the pain stop me. Claire had fought for the truth, and I owed her the same. I sat with Ethan in his cluttered apartment, the hard drive and USB glowing on his laptop screen. We're doing this, I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. For Claire, for all the kids they hurt. Ethan's fingers flew across the keyboard, uploading the files to a whistleblower platform he trusted. Diane's hard drive gave us everything. Emails proving Laura's role as MedPulse's project coordinator. Claire's recording accusing them of drug trials on orphans. And financial records linking Stephen's Hope Bridge Foundation to the payouts. We sent it all, every memo, every cold word, to an independent news site known for exposing corporate corruption. Ethan hit publish, and I held my breath. There was no going back. Within hours, the story broke. The article hit the site's homepage, titled, MedPulse's Dark Trials, a Whistleblower's Stolen Life. Claire's recording went viral, her trembling voice echoing across social media with hashtags like #JusticeForClaire and #MedPulseExposed. Strangers shared stories of loved ones lost to shady medical facilities, their posts flooding X and Reddit. Families of other victims came forward, their voices joining ours. I watched the numbers climb, thousands, then millions of views, and felt a spark of hope. The world was listening. California authorities moved fast. By the next morning, news channels reported raids on Hope Bridge Foundation's offices in Pineview Center. I knew I had to act before MedPulse could cover their tracks. With Diane's help, I gathered the legal documents proving Claire's wrongful confinement and my status as her daughter. We drove to Pineview, my heart pounding as the gray building came into view. The staff hesitated, their faces tight, but Diane handed over a court order we'd secured through a lawyer friend. She's coming with us, I said, my voice firm, when Claire stepped out of her room, her silver hair glinting in the hallway's dim light. I ran to her. We collided in a hug, both of us sobbing, her thin arms wrapping around me like she'd never let go. You did it, Ava, she whispered, her voice choked with tears. You brought me back. I held her tighter, feeling the weight of 18 lost years melt into that moment. You're free, Mom, I said, the word mom feeling new and precious on my tongue. She pulled back, her eyes shining. You're my everything. We walked out of Pineview hand in hand, the gravel crunching under our feet, the air sharp with the promise of a new start. Diane drove us to a support center for medical abuse survivors, a quiet place where Claire could heal. As we stood outside, Claire touched my cheek, her smile soft but fierce. I knew you'd find me, she said. I cried again, not from pain but from the warmth of her words. For the first time, I wasn't alone. I had my mother, and together, we'd torn down the walls MedPulse built around us. The truth was out, and MedPulse couldn't hide anymore. Laura and Stephen faced charges, conspiracy, fraud, and abuse of power. Laura's emails, cold and calculated, were undeniable proof of her role in Claire's imprisonment and MedPulse's experiments. Stephen's name was tied to Hopebridge's dirty money, his board position a facade for their crimes. I saw Laura in court once, her face pale, her eyes avoiding mine. I waited for guilt, for remorse, but there was nothing. She was Claire's sister, my adoptive mom, and yet a stranger. I felt hollow, not angry, just done. I walked away, choosing to let go of the pain she'd caused. With Claire by my side, I poured my heart into something bigger. We founded Freedom Voices, a nonprofit to support survivors of medical abuse, giving them legal aid, therapy, and a platform to be heard. Ethan's tech skills kept our data secure, and Diane's experience guided our outreach. We became a beacon for those MedPulse had silenced, their stories flooding our inbox. It wasn't just work, it was purpose. A way to honor Claire's fight and rebuild what we'd lost. Claire settled into a small house by the California coast, her garden blooming with daisies under the morning sun. She started writing her memoir, her pen scratching late into the night, reclaiming the voice MedPulse stole. One evening, as we sipped tea on her porch, she slipped a folded paper into my hand. I opened it, my breath catching at her words. Ava, you're the fire I never dared dream of. You gave me back my life. Tears fell, but I smiled, tucking the letter next to my heart. We didn't need to say more. Our silence was freedom, a bond no one could break. I'm not the girl who left that house with a backpack anymore. I'm Ava Mitchell, daughter of a fighter, a voice for the voiceless. Laura and Stephen took my past, but they couldn't take my strength. Claire's fire burns in me, and through Freedom Voices, we're lighting the way for others. Standing on that porch, watching the ocean with my mom, I know I've found my truth and myself.